Welcome, and thank you for tuning into this presentation entitled A Merchant's Guide to Chargebacks, Top 10 Things Merchants Should Do. The information that follows was prepared by MasterCard to help you better understand the chargeback process, why chargebacks occur, how to minimize the risk of a chargeback, and how to best protect your position when presented with a chargeback. Let's get started. Every transaction should be authorized. An authorization is not a guarantee that a transaction will not be charged back. However, by obtaining an authorization approval from a cardholder's bank, you ensure that the cardholder's bank is aware of and supports the transaction. Understanding and properly responding to the code or authorization response you receive from a cardholder's bank is also important. Training may be useful to educate your employees how to respond to these responses. For example, in most cases, a cashier should not try to complete a transaction after an authorization request is declined. Errors in transaction processing do occur from time to time, and it is important to understand the drivers of these errors. The most common type of error occurs when a merchant inadvertently submits the same transaction twice. This is called duplicate processing. This can occur in a card-not-present environment when a cardholder hits the submit button more than once. In a card-present environment, a cashier may submit the same transaction twice, believing the first transaction did not properly go through, even though it did. Further, in an effort to void an original sale and reprocess an accurate transaction, a cashier may charge a cardholder 3 times for the same transaction: the original sale, the sale that was supposed to be voided, and the revised sale. Merchants are encouraged to monitor their sales on a frequent basis to identify duplicate processing and other errors. In this way, merchants can proactively contact consumers to correct errors and prevent receiving chargebacks. Further, merchants should also monitor their chargeback notifications. If processing errors are the main reason for chargebacks, employee training would likely be beneficial. Chargebacks for fraud typically occur when consumers claim that transactions were conducted without their permission. In these instances, a consumer's card could be lost, stolen, or authorized at higher levels than agreed to by the consumer. Merchants should always follow the requirements for accepting a MasterCard. Along with being watchful of transactions that seem suspicious or too good to be true, exercising care during the entire purchase process will help avoid loss of goods or services as well as funds. As of October 19, 2013, in a face-to-face environment, when merchants receive valid approvals for authorizations that are electronically obtained, not key-entered, in card terminals, merchants are not responsible for fraud that occurred in connection with those transactions. Further, although it is still best practice for merchants to retain signed sales receipts, merchants are not required in this scenario to produce a signed sales slip to prove that fraud did not occur. Merchants who operate their business in a non-face-to-face environment are best served by implementing tools to minimize the risk of fraud. Tools that validate cardholder address, known as Address Verification Service, AVS, or the Card Validation Code, CVC2, on the back of the card and other elements of the transaction help minimize the risk of a fraudulent purchase. Some MasterCard tools, including Secure Code, allow merchants to successfully dispute fraud chargebacks. Please consult with your bank or contact MasterCard directly to discuss the various tools that can minimize fraud in a non-face-to-face environment. Cardholder disputes involve instances of cardholder dissatisfaction as a result of not receiving goods or services, or receiving goods that are damaged or that otherwise don't meet expectations. In these circumstances, it can be helpful for merchants to try and resolve issues with their customers directly before chargebacks are submitted. Best practices to avoid cardholder disputes include publishing clear and transparent terms and conditions of the purchase, including return policies, in prominent locations such as at the register or on the sales receipt. It's also important to deliver on commitments made to consumers and send shipments in a timely manner. When shipping goods, ensure they are packaged in a way that prevents damage. If a customer returns an item, make them aware of any delays in receiving a credit. This will appropriately set their expectations and lessen the likelihood of consumers contacting their banks to dispute charges. If a chargeback is unavoidable, it is best practice to maintain good records of your conversations with customers. Save copies of emails, receipts, packing slips, and other communications. Try to document conversations and commitments as much as possible. One of the most common reasons for chargebacks is when cardholders do not recognize merchant names on their billing statements. Cardholders expect to see the same merchant name and location on their billing statement as the name of the store in which they shopped and the name that was listed on their receipt. If a merchant is identified by a phone number on a consumer billing statement, or their address is different from the location in which the transaction took place, this creates significant cardholder confusion and may prompt the cardholder to charge back the transaction for fraud. Best practices include working with your bank to ensure your name is reflected properly on cardholder billing statements and at all points of consumer interaction on your website. Also, ensure your communications to customers include the same name and contact information as is listed on your website or storefront. All merchants are required to retain sales receipts and other sales documents for a minimum of 13 months. Keeping these documents can help avoid loss in the event the issuer or cardholder has a legitimate reason to request the information. Failure to supply documentation when requested can result in a financial loss to merchants. Further, furnishing receipts when requested by cardholders' banks is a required response. But importantly, retaining sales receipts protects against chargebacks. Although implementation of new technology can be costly, the expense outweighs the risk of fraud that results from the use of terminals with outdated security protocol. Consumers are increasingly leveraging new ways to pay, including mobile phones, digital wallets, and cards with chip technology. Upgrading your software and hardware to leverage the most sophisticated, secure options will better protect merchants from fraud. Even for merchants who only plan to accept transactions from traditional magnetic stripe cards, it is prudent to invest in technology that can guard against card-present and card-not-present fraud. In many instances, cardholders are required to provide their banks with documentation in connection with their disputes. This documentation is typically in the form of a letter written by a cardholder which details the nature of the dispute. Merchants can request that their banks share copies of cardholder documentation in connection with chargebacks. This enables merchants to respond to chargebacks in a way that directly addresses cardholder concerns. Merchants should speak directly with their banks or processors to better understand their chargeback rights. MasterCard publishes a chargeback guide which can be found on our website, www.mastercard.com, in the What We Do section under MasterCard Rules. We encourage merchants to review this document, as well as other information about fraud tools, products, and services merchants can leverage to help minimize the risk of fraud and chargebacks. This information can be found in the Security and Fraud Management section of our website. Thank you for your time and attention today. Congratulations on completing this educational module, A Merchant's Guide to Chargebacks, Top 10 Things Merchants Should Do.